exhausted by the constant pressure to be perfect? This episode explores the transformative power of embracing imperfection and finding peace in progress. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to The Path to Calm. Stop overthinking, become present, find peace. Today's featured book from Nick Trenton is The Art of Letting Go. Working at the University of Ottawa, psychology professor Patrick Goodro discovered the concept of Excellentism, which marks the strong contrast between striving to be perfect and striving for excellence. Today's episode, we're going to explore the concept of Excellentism and how to embrace it and let go of those perfectionistic tasks that tend to drive us insane in the long run. Thanks for being with us today, and I hope you find today's episode useful. Individuals often find themselves stuck on a particular task or idea because of their perfectionist tendencies. Nobody is alone in experiencing this. Perfectionism can hold people back in many ways. But there's a healthy alternative: Excellentism. Coined by psychology professor Patrick Goodro at the University of Ottawa, Excellentism involves setting high standards for oneself, but not allowing those standards to become unattainable or detrimental to one's well-being. Rather than beating oneself up for missing the mark, people can choose to be open to new experiences, employ creative problem-solving, and learn from their mistakes as they continue to strive for excellence. Letting go of perfectionism doesn't mean people settle for mediocrity. It simply means they acknowledge that progress, not perfection, is what matters most. The pursuit of perfection is a double-edged sword. On one hand, aiming for the highest level of excellence can motivate people to work harder and strive for the best. On the other hand, when perfectionists set unrealistic standards for themselves, they set themselves up for failure. No one is perfect, and expecting flawless performances every time is not only unsustainable, but also damaging to one's mental health and self-esteem. As a result, when people fall short of their expectations, the self-criticism and harsh judgment that follow can weigh heavily on them and prevent them from letting go and bouncing back from setbacks. It's important to recognize that progress is not always linear, and that celebrating small victories and learning from mistakes is essential for growth and self-improvement. Individuals are often praised for their perfectionism and drive to succeed in everything they do. From a young age, people are encouraged to strive for excellence, whether it be in academics, sports, or even their appearance. However, this pursuit of perfection can quickly become a slippery slope, as it can lead to unrealistic expectations and a constant need to outdo themselves. The pressure to maintain the highest standards can be overwhelming, and it's easy to get caught up in the cycle of always trying to achieve more. As a result, people may be vulnerable to the pitfalls of perfectionism. It's important to remember that perfection is not attainable, nor is it necessary for success. Instead, people should focus on doing their best and celebrating their achievements, no matter how big or small. Perfectionism has long been lauded as a positive trait, but research shows that it can actually be harmful. The pressure to be flawless can lead to mental health issues like anxiety and depression, as well as low self-worth. Perfectionists may also struggle to handle failure, as the stakes are often so incredibly high in their minds. This can lead to procrastination and avoidance, which can ultimately impact their success. In fact, some perfectionists may even stop taking on challenges altogether because the fear of failure is simply too great. As such, it's clear that perfectionism is not the path to success that many think it is. Excellentism seems to be a more balanced approach to setting high standards for oneself without the detrimental effects of perfectionism. By focusing on excellence rather than perfection, one can still achieve their goals and maintain a positive outlook when things don't go according to plan. Embracing mistakes and learning from them can be a powerful tool for personal growth and development. It's important to keep in mind that excellence is a journey, not a destination, and that progress is more important than perfection. Imagine a student who wants to achieve high grades in their exams. If they were a perfectionist, they might set unrealistic expectations for themselves, such as getting an A+ on every exam. If they were unable to achieve this, they might become demoralized and feel like a failure. On the other hand, if they were an excellentist, they would set high standards for themselves, but they would recognize that getting a perfect score every time is unlikely. Instead, they should focus on doing their best, learning from their mistakes, and striving for improvement on their next exam. For example, if they got a B on their first exam, instead of beating themselves up over it, they would use this as an opportunity to learn from their mistakes. They would analyze what went wrong, identify areas where they need to improve, and come up with a plan to do better next time. They would also acknowledge that getting a B is still a great achievement and a step toward excellence rather than a failure. In essence, excellentism is about focusing on the journey toward excellence rather than being fixated on a perfect outcome. It's about setting realistic expectations for oneself, striving for improvement, and embracing mistakes as opportunities for growth. Being an excellentist can actually be good for one's mental health. It might sound counterintuitive, but individuals who strive for excellence often exhibit higher levels of healthy anxiety, conscientiousness, and intrinsic motivation. Not only do they make greater progress on their life goals, but they also report higher levels of positive well-being. What's even more intriguing is they don't suffer from the negative effects of perfectionism commonly associated with high achievers, such as burnout, procrastination, and depression. So, perhaps it's worth striving for excellence after all. Excellentism acknowledges that there is a limit to how much effort people can put in before they start to experience diminishing returns. It recognizes that while hard work is essential, it's not enough on its own, and that quality matters just as much as quantity. Perfectionism can often lead people down the path of diminishing returns and even decreasing returns, where they become so fixated on achieving the perfect outcome that they lose sight of what's important. They become less productive, less creative, and less fulfilled as a result. Excellentism, on the other hand, allows them to focus on doing their best while acknowledging that perfection is an unrealistic goal. By setting high standards for oneself and striving for excellence, people can achieve great things while also enjoying the journey along the way. They can learn from their mistakes, grow as individuals and creatives, and become more resilient in the face of challenges. Excellentism opens people up to new experiences and allows them to approach problems in unique and creative ways, which can lead to even greater success and satisfaction. In contrast, perfectionists can become so fixated on achieving the perfect outcome that they lose sight of the bigger picture. They can become paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes or not living up to their own impossibly high standards. This can lead to burnout, reduced productivity, and a decreased ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Overall, excellentism is a healthier and more sustainable approach to achieving success than perfectionism. By setting high but achievable standards, being open to new experiences and approaches, and investing sufficient effort without becoming overly fixated on perfection, people can operate within the zone of increasing returns and achieve their goals efficiently and creatively. How to change perfectionism to excellentism and let go of unrealistic expectations while silencing one's inner critic. Individuals need to start asking themselves a couple of questions. Are you a perfectionist who often finds it hard to meet your own high standards? Do you constantly hear your inner critic telling you that you're not good enough? It's time to change that mindset from perfectionism to excellentism. Remember, this means striving for excellence, but not letting unrealistic expectations sabotage one's efforts or take away from one's achievements. Progress is more important than perfection. By focusing on progress and continuous improvement, people can silence their inner critic and embrace a more positive and rewarding approach to life. So, next time one feels overwhelmed by expectations, they need to take a step back, reframe their mindset, and start their journey toward excellentism. The key is to start small and focus on one area of life where one tends to get perfectionistic. Consider Orlando. For him, it's hosting. He often feels like he needs to be the perfect host, like Martha Stewart herself. But being an excellentist is not about being perfect. It's about striving for excellence. So, instead of obsessing over every detail, he focuses on the big picture and what truly matters, creating a welcoming atmosphere for his guests. By letting go of the need for perfection, Orlando can channel his energy toward creating an unforgettable experience for everyone involved. Remember, being an excellentist is not about being flawless, but about consistently striving for one's personal best. When someone tends to be perfectionistic about a particular activity, such as hosting, they may feel like anything less than perfect is a failure. It's important to identify this behavior and acknowledge that it can be both exhausting and counterproductive. To overcome this tendency toward perfectionism, it can be helpful to make a list of what perfect looks like to you, as this can help people identify the specific areas where they tend to place a lot of pressure on themselves. For example, someone who is perfectionistic about hosting may list an impeccably clean house and scrumptious food ready when everyone arrives as key components of a perfect gathering. Once an individual has their list, it's important to pick something they're willing to let go of, even if it doesn't meet their standards of perfection. This might involve accepting that the house won't be perfectly clean, or allowing themselves to use ready-made side dishes from the grocery store. By practicing letting go of these things, they can observe what happens and how it affects the outcome of the activity, as well as their own feelings and the feelings of others involved. It's important to remember that imperfection can often lead to unexpected and delightful outcomes. For example, if one is hosting a gathering and allows themselves to let go of the need for a perfectly clean house, they might find that their guests feel more comfortable and at ease, and that the atmosphere is more relaxed and enjoyable. By embracing imperfection and focusing on progress rather than perfection, they can begin to overcome their tendency toward perfectionism and enjoy the activity more fully. Additionally, practicing self-compassion is key when it comes to overcoming perfectionism. People should treat themselves with kindness and understanding, and remember that it's okay to make mistakes or fall short of their own expectations. Celebrate small victories along the way and focus on making progress rather than striving for absolute perfection. A very straightforward episode today with a single takeaway. Patrick Goodro, a psychology professor at the University of Ottawa, introduced the concept of excellentism. It entails establishing lofty benchmarks for oneself, but not letting those standards become unrealistic or harmful to one's health. Instead of self-criticism when falling short, Individuals can opt to embrace novel experiences, utilize innovative approaches to problem solving, and learn from their errors as they persistently aim for excellence. So don't let fear or anxiety discourage you from reaching your full potential. Keep striving towards excellence, face challenges head on, and above all else, never give up. And as we wrap up today's episode, I'll leave you with a quote from Thomas Alva Edison. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most successful people are those who find out what they are really good at and become masterful at it.